Well, hello. Welcome to the show that dares to try and answer the question, what in the world is going on? If you haven't asked that question, at least in this past year, you haven't been paying attention, and more than likely you are presently comatose. This show hopes to shed light, clear up some of the confusion, and improve your understanding of current events using secular sources such as the famous Q posts and Q plan, and spiritual sources, namely prophecy, Christian. Most importantly, we wish to show you these things to build your trust and nourish your faith in God's plan, that you may increase your closeness to Him who knows all things and deepen your relationship to God. So if you've been going around feeling that these very disturbing things going on in our nation and the world are just spontaneously occurring, and you're not sure what's happening next or how all of this mess is going to clear up, or if it will clear up, we want you to know that just like a bunch of atoms and gases didn't accidentally collide together one day and form the universe, so too all these disturbing events are not just randomly occurring while you're trying to live your life. No, there is a plan. There always was. Now, the things that are occurring in our nation could have many factors, but there is one common denominator, and that is that there are two narratives in our country and the world at this time. And since some people believe the one narrative and others believe the other narrative, we are actually split in two, and there is no unity. If you get all your news from the mainstream media, and that means the alphabet soup networks, ABC, NBC, CNN, and the like, then you probably think the country is undergoing peaceful protests, and that it has to do with the murder of George Floyd, and that everything else that's wrong, well, it's Trump's fault. Then this is not the show for you to watch. My best advice to you would be to remember that even as a child, you were aware that there are always two sides to every story. This is even reflected in our court system. The prosecutor says one thing, and the defense attorney says another. The mainstream media, you'll have to learn before you can actually wake up and come to reality about what is going on, is that the mainstream media is owned by 5 or 6 owners who all share the same ideology. Plus, they are bought and paid for by the same entities. So no matter what channel you are watching, you're still only getting one side of the story. They make sure of that. It's slanted and it's twisted to benefit those who control them and who pay them. When you decide that you want to at least hear the other side of the story, maybe because of some nagging suspicion inside that you might not be being told the entire truth about what's going on, then you must seek it. You need to go to other independent news sites, those who are not being paid for by a certain group of people. And they will expound and teach and explain to you the other side of the story so that you could then make up your own mind. Now, there are many good sources. Best of all are the Q posts. They open up the reality of how the world is really run and how things really work. It's called the hidden truth, hidden by those who control most of the channels of communication. And it is their intent to keep it hidden from you. It's so much easier to control the population when they don't know the truth. So just as the defense attorney will seek to bring about and bring to light hidden evidence that shows his client is innocent, and this would allow the jurors to think about it and make a decision or maybe change their opinion by knowing this other evidence, you will have a chance to do the same. And then you might probably have a paradigm shift. But again, it is your decision to know the truth or not. Now, to those who do listen to independent news sources on the internet, such as Patriot Videos, the Q News programs, and there are many good ones. There's Praying Medic, Truth in Art TV, Deception Bites. These are all good ways to hear the Q posts and also to hear the other stories that the mainstream media will not tell you. If you do listen to independent news sources, you are well aware that we are in a civil war in this nation. Actually, it's called a Marxist insurgency. That's the most accurate description because it was given to us by Q himself and also General Flynn. Now, it's also been called irregular warfare. It's an information war. The weapons and the bullets that are being used are not made out of metal. They're made out of lies. So as I spoke about the nation being split in two because of these two narratives, so are many families undergoing a lot of division because of this. You see, you cannot have unity with two different versions of reality. You can't have two driver's licenses or two birth certificates and get very far in life because one is going to be true and one is definitely fraudulent. This is why a free press is so necessary to a nation's unity and survival. The founding fathers knew this, and also presidents have expounded on it, such as Abraham Lincoln, JFK, and our own President Trump. Now, if you listen to the Q posts and do your own research, you will find out that the CIA is involved in our press through Operation Mockingbird. This is something you could verify for yourself quite easily. Multiple reporters will use the very same catchphrases on the very same day, reporting the very same news story, as if they're reading from a script. Then who gave them this script so that they should all speak one way, in unison, like a mockingbird? And as recently tweeted out by our own president, monies have been paid to networks by China to speak the words that China puts in their mouths. So when you turn on your American news network at night, you may be getting a dose of Chinese propaganda. And that makes you victims. You have every right to assume that you're listening to an American news station and that the people running it would be loyal to America. But instead, they are bought and paid for and controlled by the enemies of America. Trust President Trump when he called them the enemy of the people. This is what is going on in America at this time. The Marxists that are attempting to overthrow our government could not be happening. This could not be happening without the cooperation and the collusion of a controlled press speaking false news 24/7. You might say this insurgency began with the assassination of JFK. At least it began in earnest after that. For 50 years, the deep state has been growing like a cancer, spreading its tentacles into every institution, from the media to Hollywood to education and to all departments of the government, all the way down to the local school boards. It would be like having termites, unbeknownst to you, for 20 or 30 years. And then one day, the walls in your home begin to crack and fall apart. And you're shocked at the damage done while you were totally unaware. So this describes the political situation in the U.S. at this time. Remember that this conflict, to come to this level, could only happen with a press and media that is lying. But now that we see this disturbance in our nation and in the world, we ask, which way will it go? What will be the outcome? And are we lost as a nation? Are we lost? Before we go on, how about a word or two from our sponsor, God? Remember that good old Bible verse? Everyone knows it. It comes from John chapter 8, verse 32. And it says, I have it right here written out so I get it right, from the New International Version. Chapter 8, verse 32. And you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. So then why, if this is God's word, why are so many people in our nation and in the world deceived? How come they've fallen under this veil of deception? Why do they buy the lies? Well, the answer lies in the verse preceding it. Verse 31. If you abide in my word, you are my disciples indeed, and you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. So, in other words, we have to live in the word, not just speak it. We must do what God told us to do and be his disciples indeed, not just in word. And then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Well, certainly I think we can agree that the world and our nation have fallen far from the Word of God. We could mention rampant abortion and even the human sex trafficking, abominations, not to mention the greed and graft that is just rampant across our nation, most entirely in politicians. Do we see this? No longer do they do things for the good of the people, but rather to line their pockets and enlarge their bank account. Now, let's get back to answering the question, what in the world is going on? Well, there is a prophecy that seems to hit the nail on the head. We look to prophecy to give us guidance and hope for the future, to give us guidance through those very dark times. And again, as I said, there is a prophecy that seems to hit the nail right on the head. It comes from Our Lady of Fatima. In 1917, our Blessed Virgin Mary appeared to 3 small children in Fatima, Portugal. This is one of the most important private revelations in Catholicism. Our Lady said that she wanted the Pope in union with all the bishops of the world to consecrate Russia to her Immaculate Heart. And if they didn't do this, then Russia would continue to spread her errors throughout the world. Sister Lucia, who was the eldest of these 3 children, lived a very long life. I think she lived to be 90, 91. But every so many years, she received a visit from our Blessed Mother and still had a chat with her. Back in 1946, Sister Lucia was interviewed by a very famous historian, Mr. Walsh. Mr. Walsh asked her about the prophecy, and Sister Lucia said it this way: communism would spread throughout every country in the world if the consecration were not made. Mr. Walsh was surprised. He said, "Even the United States of America?" Sister Lucia answered, "Yes, even America." Well, this was quite surprising. When I was a child, I learned the prophecy, and it said Russia would continue to spread her errors throughout the world. And I remember even as a child thinking, well, that meant throughout the world would mean a lot of countries, but certainly not the United States of America, not the land of the free and the home of the brave. But you see, Sister Lucia didn't really change the meaning. She simply clarified it. After all, she is the one who heard the words spoken. She understood the meaning and the intent. So she clarified them after having a recent visit from our Blessed Mother. She said communism instead of Russia would spread her errors. Well, Russia's biggest error is communism. And throughout the world really means the same as what Sister Lucia said in 1946. Throughout every country in the world. And she even specified it. Yes, America also. So that fits with what President Trump said. Remember, on July 3rd, in a speech on Mount Rushmore, he said, "We are in the process of destroying," and he gave several groups of people. One of those groups was radical leftists. Some people don't truly understand the meaning of radical leftists. It's just another word for communists or Marxists. Radical comes from the Latin word for root. It means you not just want a few surface changes, like changing the shrubbery around your house. You want to go right down to the foundation, the root, and rip it out. That means destroy the government. The president, when he speaks, has a responsibility to not panic the people. He has the responsibility to keep society functioning and not harming it. He has to keep the nation together. But listen to the words. It's just like what Sister Lucia said. When instead of saying Russia would spread her errors, she said communism. Same difference, same meaning. Throughout the world, yes, throughout, meaning throughout every country. When President Trump used to talk about what he was trying to do with ISIS, he would use this phrase. He would never say we are at war with ISIS. He would say we are in the process of destroying ISIS. That means war. Destroying is a very, very serious word. So radical leftists are Marxists and communists. Someone asked me once, what is a globalist? Well, a globalist is a communist. It's just a new word. It's kind of like when you buy your old favorite box cereal of cornflakes, and on the front it says new and improved. You open it up, it's the same box of cornflakes. Communism is a word that got a bad reputation, especially after Stalin, and Marx. Stalin and Lenin, murdered so many people, not to mention what's going on in China and North Korea. So they rebranded it. It's globalism. Makes you think of birds tweeting in a tree and butterflies flying around and all that eco stuff. But it's the same old communism. It's the same old plan for world domination, where a small group of people at the top control and take care of everybody else. And that's what's going on at this time in the world and in our nation. This is the new world order come to your doorstep. A lot of what is going on with the coronavirus is exactly that. The mask mandates are to see how well the people will accept the tyranny. You can do your own judgment if you go to a store like Walmart. Notice how many people are wearing masks and how many are not. It'll give you a good judgment about how many people will simply accept what is coming and what is here, and as it grows more intense. It also gives you a good way to judge how many people are still deceived by the lies and believe them. Now, we say, okay, that's what's going on presently. And she said that back in 1917 and then clarified it in 1946. So what about the future for America? Where is America in prophecy? Oh, that's an interesting question. So many of my fundamentalist brothers and sisters are always trying to show me in the Bible where there are passages that relate to America. But I'm not so sure. It's an awfully tight fit. Kind of like a woman with a size 9 foot trying to wear a size 5 shoe. So where do we go to find prophecies about America? You'll be very surprised. There's a prophecy and vision given to George Washington, the father of our country. Some people will say, well, that's not a Christian prophecy. George Washington was a Mason. Well, he was a Mason. He was also known for being a very prayerful person. And if you think that because someone is a Mason, that all Masons are going to hell, you're sadly mistaken. That would be like saying that all Catholics are going to heaven. I can prove my point by 2 words: Nancy Pelosi. I have no idea where she's going. I'm only making a general observation, a human observation. Only God knows, for sure. But by what we see, it's not looking too good. You can be a Mason and maybe not have really intended to take oaths and curse your own soul. Even when 2 Catholics are joined in marriage, if one of them does not have the intention to enter into a permanent bond, that could be grounds for a Catholic annulment down the line, because the things that are necessary to form a contract, one that sticks, are not there. It was simply a very common thing to do to be in the Masonic order. And George Washington exhibited many virtues. A man whose soul had been cursed certainly could not exhibit such virtues, and one of them was humility. When he was asked to be king, he refused. Let's look at this vision of George Washington. I'm not going to read the whole vision, but I'm going to give you the background. Okay. It was the winter of 1777. In fact, it was Christmas Eve. George Washington had not yet had a victory. And what he had done was go in to his tent and ask to be left alone. And the reason was he was undergoing a great deal of trauma and turmoil. His men were freezing. They were poorly clad. They were poorly fed. And the Continental Congress was not too willing to give them more money. He didn't know whether he should throw in the towel and let the men go, because he knew that when the weather warmed, they would leave anyway. While in his tent alone, going through a real emotional and spiritual battle. A figure appeared to him, a very beautiful, splendidly beautiful woman. He was startled because he had left strict orders to not be disturbed. This lady did not answer him when he questioned her, but a strange fog or mist appeared, and George Washington was given a vision of the future of our nation. He saw all the things that were detrimental or would put the Republic into grave danger. But we're going to go from the Revolutionary War and the Civil War, which are shown to him in this vision, since those have already passed, we're going to go to the one that denotes our future. Let's begin reading. And again I heard the mysterious voice saying, "Son of the Republic, look and learn." At this dark, shadowy angel placed a trumpet to his mouth and blew 3 distinct blasts. And taking water from the ocean, he sprinkled it upon Europe, Asia, and Africa. Then my eyes beheld a fearful scene. From each of these countries arose thick black clouds that were soon joined into one. Throughout this mass there gleamed a dark red light, by which I saw hordes of armed men, who, moving with the cloud, marched by land and sailed by sea to America. Our country was enveloped in this volume of cloud, and I saw these vast armies devastate the whole country and burn the villages, towns, and cities that I beheld springing up. As my ears listened to the thundering of the cannon, clashing of swords, and the shouts and cries of millions in mortal combat, I heard again the mysterious voice saying, "Son of the Republic, learn and look and learn." When the voice had ceased, the dark, shadowy angel placed his trumpet once more to his mouth and blew a long and fearful blast. Instantly a light of 1,000 suns shone down from above me, and pierced and broke into fragments the dark cloud which enveloped America. At the same moment, the angel upon whose head still shone the word Union, and who bore our national flag in one hand and a sword in the other, descended from the heavens, attended by legions of white spirits. These immediately joined the inhabitants of America, who I perceived were well nigh overcome, but who immediately, taking courage again, closed up their broken ranks and renewed the battle. Again, amid the fearful noise of the conflict, I heard the mysterious voice saying, "Son of the Republic, look and learn." As the voice ceased, the shadowy angel for the last time dipped water from the ocean and sprinkled it upon America. Instantly the dark cloud rolled back, together with the armies it had brought, leaving the inhabitants of the land victorious. Then once more I beheld the villages, towns, and cities springing up where I had seen them before, while the bright angel, planting the azure standard he had brought in the midst of them, cried with a loud voice, listen carefully now, "While the stars remain and the heavens send down dew upon the earth, so long shall the Union last." And taking from his brow the crown on which blazoned the word Union, he placed it upon the standard, while the people, kneeling down, said, "Amen." The scene instantly began to fade and dissolve, George Washington said, and I at last saw nothing but the rising, curling vapor that I had first beheld. This also disappearing, I found myself once more gazing upon the mysterious visitor, who in the same voice I had heard before said, "Son of the Republic, what you have seen is thus interpreted. 3 great perils will come upon the Republic. The most fearful is the 3rd. But in this greatest conflict, the whole world united shall not prevail against her. Let every child of this Republic learn to live for his God, his land, and the Union. And with these words, the vision vanished. There is your prophecy about the future of America. The third peril is the greatest. The dark red light gleaming in this billowy cloud enveloping America is the Marxism and communism hovering all over our country. And I love where he says the broken ranks of the people will be joined again together. We have to be together to fight this. We have to. Every nation in Catholic teaching, every nation has its own guardian angel. And George Washington was graced with a vision from ours. Notice what our angel's name was. Not freedom, not liberty, but union. And just as Abraham Lincoln refused to let the states of the South secede from the Union, he kept that country and nation together and succeeded. So too, it is good news to know that our union will last, but we must stay united. We must understand the truth. We must not break apart into fragments. Thank you. In our next episode, we have more prophecies to look into as we go down this road of looking at the current events and how prophecy helps explain them to us. Thank you.